I've got a final JP poll here, kind of an immunity. Final JP poll. I debated this, but I have decided I'm going to release it. The JP poll, a reminder for the 19,000th time, is not a ranking. The JP poll is we got the model over here, and we crunch the numbers, and it's just built to spit out futuristic favorability. That's all I'm trying to do with these numbers. So who would be favored on a neutral field if we played these games tomorrow, any team against any team? So it'll look weird because there are a lot of teams with worse records than other teams, and they're rated ahead of them, but that's why. So let's one last time, you and I, go down this road together for this season. Ohio State does indeed finish as the number one team. So congrats to the Buckeyes. Not that they needed the validation because they just hoisted a national championship trophy. But let me read you 1 through 5, and then let me give you a note. So the final 5, Ohio State, Oregon, Texas, Notre Dame, and Georgia. That's your 1 through 5. Ohio State not only finishes number 1 after starting number 2, they beat the number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6, and number 9 teams in the country. So I know there's this stat floating around. You know, they beat the AP team here, the AP team there. Even in power rating world, Ohio State beat the 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 9 teams. It's insane. I know it's the expanded playoffs, so you're going to play more ranked teams if you go win a title, but that's crazy. But then Oregon being number 2, I think will raise some eyebrows maybe. I don't know where the AP had them. But Oregon, remember, this is about neutral field favorability. Like, Oregon got pasted by Ohio State, but Ohio State's above them. Oregon against anyone else would be favored. According to the model, they would be favored. Texas at 3. Georgia, now I should say Georgia at 5 is without Carson Beck. So with Carson Beck, who knows, maybe they finish above Notre Dame, but that's a moot point because he wasn't on the team at the end of the year. Okay, 6 through 10. Penn State winds up at 6. Ole Miss at 7. Alabama 8. Tennessee 9. South Carolina 10. I feel like I need to pause because even though I gave the preface and even though I think we've explained how this works. Hold on, let me send this tweet right quick. Even though I've explained how this works, I know there'll be someone who looks at this and say, oh, so you think you think Alabama and South Carolina should have been in the playoff? No, I don't. They shouldn't have been in the playoff because that's not what this is. This is not merit-based. This is who would they have been favored against if they played. So, like, SMU was in the playoff and Alabama wasn't. Alabama would certainly be favored against SMU if they played, but that doesn't matter because it's not a merit-based thing. So, anyway, here's what's wild about this. I'm very proud of this. The top 8 teams in the preseason for us finished the same top 8. The only difference was the order, and there's no team more than 3 spots off where they were in the preseason. So the model just totally nailed the best teams in the country. Now here's where it goes off the rails a little bit. Once we get past the top 8, we had FSU at 9. Notably, that ended in disaster, of which I take zero blame, and I give all the blame to Florida State. Number 10, we had Oklahoma at 12. We had A&M at 13. So yes, the model is not perfect. But again, remember the rule around here. We do not get predictions wrong. We do not get power ratings wrong. Either we're right or kids, coaches, and officials screw it up. And that's how we end up being wrong. So we love the credit. We do not want any of the blame. If you take away nothing else from this show about our responsibility to you other than that, just remember, it's not our fault. Let's move on. 10 through 15 or 11 through 15. Clemson finishes 11. Miami is 12. SMU is 13. Indiana 14. Florida finished top 15. Did you know that Billy Napier coached a top 15 team this year? Well, in the JP poll, he sure did. Florida, even with 5 regular season losses, ended up beating the number 22 team and ended up beating the number 7 team. Florida found a way to lose 5 games and still have a top 10 win. Crazy stuff. Again, you're not always what your record says you are. They played 8 teams in the top 30, by the way, did Florida. Next up, Michigan finished 16th. Michigan left for dead once upon a time. We kept them in the top 25. Remember, we were taking some flack, Jesse and Colin. We were taking some flack because people said, why is Michigan still in the top 25? Well, they weren't bad. They weren't as bad as it looked, let me say. They end up number 16. Arizona State, This will raise some eyebrows. Arizona State was a playoff team, but in favorability terms, they're only 17th. No disrespect. This is a different thing than a ranking. Louisville 18, Iowa State 19, Baylor at 20, and then to round out the top 25, TCU still there. Pretty underrated team. TCU at 21. LSU finishes 22. They started at 10th. They finished 22. USC started at 20th. They finished 23rd. Iowa started 22nd. They finished 24th. And Minnesota finishes 25th. So, my biggest disappointment by 10 miles is Florida State. I mean, that's not any great shock. It's interesting how the ACC panned out there. So it was Clemson versus SMU for the ACC title. It was Miami on the outside looking in, and they were all kind of bunched up. And that's where they finished here, too, 11, 12, and 13. I think Florida finishing 15th is interesting. I think Michigan and Florida finishing 15, 16 after where they were early in the season, pretty noteworthy to me.